Hey, welcome. I'm Christine Weber, and I try and live stream on Wednesdays around 11. Sometimes I'm late. I had some tech issues today. Anyway, welcome. Nice to have you here. I have a couple things I want to share with you today. First of all, I've been working on a methodology for, I have a methodology for home practice for deciding what your home practice is. And it has to do with like understanding your constitution and your condition, and then understanding the energetics of the practices, the asanas, pranayama, meditation, and how that will support your constitution and condition. And it's a step-by-step process. I will be talking about this. I will be teaching it for 4 hours in my workshop on January 27th. If you would like to come, just reach out to us, support@subtleyoga.com, and we'll send you a link to that workshop. Okay, so today I want to talk about what is good yoga, because that is a question that comes up a lot. It's something that I've been interested in for many, many years, decades even, and something that I think about a lot. So I think as yoga teachers, we don't want to be judgy. We don't want to condemn anyone. Like I never want to throw anybody under the bus for whatever they're teaching. For me, it was, as somebody who was practicing yoga even as early as the late 1970s and the early 1980s, what happened in the 90s was that yoga was co-opted by the fitness industry in this country. Previously, it was more like a spiritual, new agey kind of thing that had been adopted by the hippie culture, and introduced even by the hippie culture. And then in the 90s, it really changed. So as somebody who had started with that like relaxation and spiritual awareness kind of yoga, then what happened in the 90s was really kind of almost shocking to my system. I remember being like the first vinyasa class I went to, which would have been in 1995, I think. I think this was the first one. Yeah. I remember being like, I don't even know what's going on here. Like I was lost. I was really lost. And then I watched the whole progression of fitness yoga till this day, so it's been three decades that I've watched the whole thing shift. And I've been teaching since 1995. I started off teaching the stuff that I learned from, and I still teach that way, pretty much the stuff I learned from my Indian teachers. Okay, so anyway, getting to this idea of what's good yoga. So I think one of the parallels here, or a way you could look at it, is through something like food or art or literature. So wine is a really good example too. So I'm going to use all those examples. So let's start with literature. I was at a bookstore a few months ago, and I had a conversation with an employee at the bookstore, and she, I was asking her about books, and she's like, "What do you think about this?" And I was like, "Well, I don't think she's a very good writer." And she was instantly kind of offended that I said that about her, about this writer. And I thought, oh, I probably should have been careful. But my opinion, as somebody who reads a lot of fiction, I was like, I thought the story was kind of interesting, but the writing wasn't very interesting or sophisticated. And so she got a little huffy, and she said to me, "Fiction is subjective. Everybody has different tastes." Okay. But if fiction, and I let it go, I wasn't going to argue, but if fiction was subjective and it's just about everybody having different tastes, then you wouldn't have awards in fiction. You wouldn't have the Pulitzer Prize or the Nobel Prize. Like, these are experts who decide what is good fiction. Now, let's take wine for an example. You could drink strawberry Boone's Farm, strawberry, I don't know if they'd make that. That's what we used to drink in high school. Like, you can drink strawberry wine, or you can drink, some fancy French house wine that's 30 years old. And the sommeliers develop a palate for what wine is excellent and what wine is not. And they give awards to wine, right? Same thing with food. Chefs get awards. There's the James Beard House Award. It's given to the best chefs. uh, not to McDonald's, and it doesn't mean like you should never eat McDonald's. You should eat whatever you like, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a consensus of what constitutes good food, good wine, good fiction, good art. Like these are acceptable in our culture, and some people don't like it, but it's still acceptable that there are, and it's the same thing with like science. They give awards for good science. These are considered acceptable in our culture. Now, when we get to yoga, we're like, oh, we don't want to offend anybody. And yoga is all good. It's all good. Those are lovely things to say. And it really depends on your goal. What's your focus and what's your goal? If your goal is hard body fitness, I would suggest there's better ways to get there than yoga. There just are. I mean, listen to people like, here are the experts again. I don't know who they are, but maybe Peter Attia or Huberman or something. Like the people who are the experts in fitness are going to tell you how to get that fitness, and it's usually not like yoga. They're like, oh, it's good for stretching, but they don't think about it in terms of fitness, because the goals of yoga originally were not fitness. That, as I said, that happened in the 90s. The original goals of yoga are self-understanding, self-regulation, self-knowledge, right? Still the mind, so you can know who you are. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha Tada Drastu Swarupa. So I'm sorry, my Sanskrit's right out the window today. Anyway, the Yoga Sutra 2 is yoga is a cessation of the fluctuations of the mind, and then 1.3 is so then you know who you are. Tara Drastu Swarupeya Vastanam. There it is. So if that's the goal of yoga, to know who you are, to self-regulate better, to still your mind, it's probably not the same thing as a hard workout. It's probably not the same thing. I would suggest it is the same thing. So the better yoga, I would suggest, is the yoga that does that well. It's tricky. Like I don't want to be here being like, I'm an authority on yoga, so I'm going to pick the best yoga. But if there was a prize for yoga, I would feel comfortable being one of the experts to help give that prize out, and so anyway, let the prize givers know that I'm willing to help them. I'm not saying, but I so you're walking this fine line, because I'm not trying to say like I know the best yoga and it's only my yoga. I'm not trying to say that, but at the same time, I am comfortable saying that there's a lot of junk. There's a lot of yoga. Okay, maybe not junk, but there's a lot of yoga that fits better into like a fitness or a stretching or a mobility category than it does into those basic goals. And it is tough to stand here and say this, because I know how much pushback I will get. I know there's going to be pushback in the comments. I know it, because when I've said these things before, I've been challenged on it. So, but it's okay. Like I still have to say it, and I want to take you back to that metaphor, those metaphors: food, wine, fiction, art. Those metaphors we accept in our culture, or I should say, in those categories we accept in our culture because we give awards for it, So is there a better yoga? Well, yeah, there's a yoga that's better for you, and there's probably several of them. And maybe your goals change a little bit, and that's okay too. But to have that discerning insight, it's something that we develop over time, and it's okay. Just like a master cello player like Yo-Yo Ma, or a master artist, right? Vincent van Gogh, or whoever you love, a master writer, Toni Morrison, crafted their art over time and became skilled and became experts in their field over time. And we accept that, but somehow in yoga, we don't accept it. And I think we have to rethink that. That's all I'm trying to say. I think we have to rethink that. I think it's okay. It's okay to develop discernment over time and to very kindly give people advice when they ask for it. Now, I have a really dear person in my life who loves fitness fast yoga. And I know, I was talking to her about this topic the other day, and I said, I don't give you a hard time for that. Do it if you like it. And she's like, well, but it's interesting to her to listen to me talk about how there could be something else for her out there if that was, if that's her interest. Is she's really, really into, she just likes the fitness stuff and it works for her. So, what am I going to say? Not out here to like be the yoga police. That's not it at all. But I do think developing discernment and developing refinement in your taste in yoga as you get further down the path, it's just natural. It's going to happen. And we don't have to decide that there's something wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's normal. It's natural. And the way that we convey that to our students has to be super friendly, but it also has to be like, there's a lot more to learn. And, as we go down the path, our taste in yoga, just like our taste in everything else, it will change, and that's okay. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next week. Take care.